that it was in. Absolutely disgraceful. We are investing to turn that around. We are reforming to turn that around. We are within that reform dealing with social care. I set out the timetable to him last week in the way that he knows it's set out.
Sir Ed Davey.
Speaker, I'm continue to be disappointed by the Prime Minister's position on social care, and I'm going to keep coming back to this issue because unless we fix it, we won't fix the NHS. But turning now to the economy, an idea for the Chancellor to grow the economy. As President-elect Trump prepares to take office next week, there are reports that a number of wealthy, high-skilled Americans are looking to come to the UK for fear of what President-elect Trump will do to their country. But because the Conservatives so broke the immigration system, many of them are finding there's no visa that they can apply for. Now, I know the Prime Minister is rightly seeking to reduce immigration from the record highs of the Conservative. But does he agree, if people like this want to come to our country, to bring their money and their skills so we can grow our economy and pay for our public services, they should be able to?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we welcome all investment into the United Kingdom, and I'm very pleased we've had record investment in the time that we've been in office and continue to welcome investors and investment to this country. But he's absolutely right. The last government lost control of immigration as they lost control of health and the economy and the borders and everything else. And it was, of course, the Leader of the Opposition who was championing the driving up of the numbers. So we will bring those numbers down. We'll get it back under control. We'll encourage investment.
Christine Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dental deserts mean that routine dental checkups and treatment is often unavailable in local communities. In my constituency, we've had a dedicated space for dental practice in the Blackburn Partnership Centre since 2018, but NHS Lothian has been unable to secure a dental practice. What steps will the Prime Minister take to work with devolved governments to improve access to local NHS dentists across the UK?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank you for raising this issue, and it shows the state of public services under the SNP. Mr. Speaker, if you can believe it, a third of Scots struggle to access dentistry, and a quarter of Scottish children start primary school with tooth decay. That is really shocking. Clearly, there's much more the SNP should be doing. They should be ashamed. When a quarter of children are starting school with tooth decay, that is nothing to crow about. It's something to be ashamed of. Mr. Speaker, here we're delivering additional 700,000 appointments, reforming the contracts, and of course we'll work with the Scottish Government to improve the health of children in Scotland.
Jim Allister.
Given President Trump's antipathy to the EU, how does the Prime Minister hope to attain a trade deal for the whole United Kingdom in circumstances where the trade laws affecting part of the United Kingdom, namely Northern Ireland, are the EU's trade laws, and in circumstances where the laws governing goods and the standards of those that can be imported are EU laws? How, in those circumstances, can a deal be obtained for the whole United Kingdom, or is the Prime Minister only interested in a deal which would apply to GB and thereby further ostracise Northern Ireland from the Union?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member knows that controls apply only to EU goods moving into Great Britain. The overwhelming majority of goods moving between Northern Ireland and Great Britain will continue to enjoy unfettered access to Great Britain indefinitely. The honourable member's made much of mutual enforcement. The reality is this is mutual agreement, and I know he's got his proposal, but I think his proposal would lead in the end to a hard border, and that's something that has been rejected across this House on many occasions, and for good reason.
Brown Leishman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In the general election campaign, Labour leadership promised that if we won, we would step in and save the Grangemouth refinery, retain those jobs and invest in its future. 6 months later, this hasn't happened yet. If the refinery closes, then thousands of jobs will be lost and Scotland's national security will become massively weaker. Now that we are in power, I know that the government should use it to intervene and save the refinery jobs, protect Scotland and deliver on the promise to build Grangemouth for the future. Will the Prime Minister do that?
This is a really important point, Mr. Speaker, because before July there was no plan at all to support the workers at Grangemouth. Within weeks, and importantly, we announced a £100 million deal for a growth deal, and we're jointly funding Project Willow to find a viable long-term future. It is a really serious point. I take it very seriously, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that viable long-term future is there for the workers, for their communities, and all that rely on it.
Dr. Danny Chambers.
Mr. Speaker, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has led to the emergence of bacteria that are severely resistant to multiple antibiotics, and this is now seriously delaying the return of injured soldiers back to the front line. But just like Mr. Putin, we know that these superbugs do not respect national borders, and it is only a matter of time until we start to detect them in our NHS hospitals, and we know that antimicrobial resistance is a huge challenge facing us at the moment. Will the Prime Minister consider supporting the Ukrainian war effort by providing rapid diagnostic tests which can be used in the field and in civilian hospitals, which will not only enable us to diagnose and treat these resistant infections more quickly, returning soldiers back to the front line more quickly, but will also provide valuable surveillance data to help global public health and protect our NHS from these dangerous bacteria?
I thank him for raising this, and he knows our support for Ukraine is ironclad. Mr. Speaker, we are funding NHS doctors and nurses to work closely with their Ukrainian counterparts to share best practice, including how to prevent the spread of infections and AMR. Through the World Health Organization, we're also strengthening Ukraine's health system to provide better care, and we'll continue to do so.
Andy MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Employment Rights Bill is urgently needed, especially given the exploitation of gig workers, like those retail assistants employed through apps, with vital rights denied and staff being charged a premium should they want to be paid on time. Insecure work denies workers their rights, but the TUC has also said it costs the economy around £10 billion a year. So will the Prime Minister agree with me that having a single status of worker will help end such abusive practices, give workers security and significantly benefit the economy?
I thank him for raising this, and Mr. Speaker, I believe everyone is entitled to fair, flexible and secure working, and that's why we introduced our Employment Rights Bill, which is the biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation. It includes measures that will end the scandal of fire and rehire, preventing exploitative zero-hour contracts and introducing basic rights for more workers from day one, secure wages, secure jobs and ensuring workers have the rights that they deserve at work.
Peter Bedford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Age UK Leicestershire have done a sterling job over the last few months, supporting pensioners who have lost the winter fuel payment as a result of his government's budget. They now face a staggering £400,000 increase in their costs as a result of the increase in national insurance. What advice can the Prime Minister give to charities like Age UK, who now have to decide whether to cut jobs or slash services to some of the most vulnerable in society?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the advantage, I suppose, of the Leader of the Opposition having no policies is that they can say completely contradictory things without breaching their policy. But they want the benefits of the budget, but none of the tough measures to support the budget. We have, Mr. Speaker, we've taken the decision in relation to pension credit and pension allowances, but because of our commitment to the triple lock, there will be an upgrade in April of this year of £460. But, Mr. Speaker, what I noticed that before Christmas, the Shadow Chancellor said that the triple lock is unsustainable. Unsustainable. So that's their position. Pensions going up under this government because committing to the triple lock unsustainable is their argument.
Graham Morris.
Later this month, the constituency will mark the anniversary of the tragic murder of Holly Newton. Will the Prime Minister and Home Secretary look urgently